Okay, people. So it's May 13th, 2018. I am going to read this to you. Do you see that? That came from CIBC Bank back on April 11th. Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting? The day Shmay died. The day Shmay died is the day I got that, remember? Right? Because we're working with the devil here, people. The person who murdered Shmay is walking around free. And nobody seems to care about that. Alright. Like I said, it's just business as usual. Right? It feeds the economy. It boosts up the healthcare system with their ICU units. Anyway, I said I was going to read this, right? So that's what I'm going to do, people. I'm going to read it. I started reading it, and I'm disgusted with it. Because this bank is clearly crooked. Extremely crooked. But then they've got lots to lose, right? $10 million lawsuit. Who wouldn't be crooked? This is a response to the civil claim filed by the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. 1. Part 1. Division. Defendant's response to facts. None of the facts alleged in Part 1 of the Notice of Civil Claim, the claim, are admitted. All the facts alleged in Part 1 of the claim are denied. 3. The facts alleged in paragraph nil of Part 1 of the claim are outside of the knowledge of the defendant. Division 2. Defendant's version of facts. The claim as filed contains irrelevant and incoherent factual allegations that fail to articulate any cause of action against CIBC Bank. 2. No reasonable claim against CIBC Bank can be discerned from the facts alleged in the claim. 3. All the material times the plaintiff was a client of CIBC Bank. Well, yeah, I was a client of them for over 20 years, people, since 1990. They try and tell me I'm a good customer. Yeah, right. Stab me in the back. 4. At all material times, John Bernard Duncan was a client of CIBC Bank. Yeah, because I took him there because he wanted his own bank account. So I took him there, people. What a mistake that was. At the time of the events that are at issue in this proceedings took place, Mr. Duncan was approximately 77 years old. He was 76. But old enough for them to take advantage of him, right? 5. On or about October 30th, 1990, Mr. Duncan executed an enduring power of attorney appointing the plaintiff as the power of attorney. The attorney power of attorney. CIBC had the power of attorney on file since 2001. That's not true, people. They had it on file since 1990, right? Because that's where it was signed, at CIBC Bank, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. So they have the original, right? They have the original. And then in 2001, I guess they were sniffing around, right? Because his pensions, he was getting old. So they wanted to reconfirm that I had power of attorney, so they called us in and they requested him to do it again. So I was listed down twice in their files, people. And I've already shown you... Oh my God, this freaking camera. I've already shown you the original from 1990 in a previous video. That only one manager was kind enough to give to me after a year of bullshit lies from Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Because he knew that something was wrong. And I was being lied to by that bank and their employees up in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada. 6. In or about February 2015, Mr. Duncan's sister, Eleanor Gilding, attended at a CIBC branch and raised concerns about the plaintiff's access to and use of funds in Mr. Duncan's account. Wow, he only lived with me for 23 years. He was only in my life for 32 or 33 years. Why did she have to wait until he got old? Why did she have to wait until he ended up at the Surrey Memorial Hospital? And they kept saying he was confused. And they wouldn't release him because he was confused. When he wanted to come home, he was confused. CIBC was provided with an enduring power of attorney dated February 20th, 2015. Did you see that one letter note, one signature note? Remember that video with the one signature note revoking me power of attorney signed by Eleanor Gilding? Well, I'm wondering if that's the same revoking that she provided to the bank. Appointing Mrs. Gilding as Mr. Duncan's power of attorney, the Gilding power of attorney, which revoked all prior powers of attorney, including a Chorney power of attorney. CIBC was advised that the Gilding power of attorney had been witnessed at the hospital where Mr. Duncan had been cared for at the time. At this time, there was no concern regarding Mr. Duncan's competency. Well, why didn't they let him come home, people? I have it on video. People, where they wouldn't let him go home. They were shipping him off if it wasn't convalescent care. They were shipping him off all of a sudden out in the fucking country with some sister that he hadn't seen in years. But they sure in the hell weren't going to let him come home. In response to the foregoing, CIBC froze Mr. Duncan's accounts and undertook an internal investigation. So I guess they started investigating me on February 20th of 2015. On my birthday, people. The day after, I have it on video where John is telling me to go get a lawyer. Right? Because he wanted to come home and he didn't want his sister taking over his life, taking him to Victoria, right? Making it so I had to go sleep out in the fucking streets out in Victoria fighting for him because he just simply wanted to come home. And he told me to go get a lawyer on the 19th. And because they were listening and had their cameras and doing whatever, she got scared, this woman, and went in there the next day or had somebody do it. She must have been lurking in the freaking halls. Who knows? Because she lives in Victoria. So what was she doing? Lurking in the halls? Did she have Wi-Fi and was watching on a computer screen what was going on in that room? As we're talking about going to get a lawyer? John asking me to go get a lawyer? And then next day, all of a sudden, he's signing something in front of all the hospital staff when we already know the hospital staff was plotting against me, right? Making accusations against me because the ulterior motive was to get John to Victoria by any means necessary and take over his assets. More than likely a life insurance policy that his wife left him after she died, right? Through some government superannuation life insurance policy. And his sister wanted to get her dirty, grubby fingers on that. And because she works in the healthcare system and has been in the healthcare system for a long time and is a senior nurse, nepotism played a role in her getting what she wanted. We live in a very corrupt society, people. Very corrupt society. On or about March 26, 2015, Mr. Duncan attended at a CIBC branch in Mill Bay, BC, and executed a further CIBC form. I don't know about that, people, because the kids went to go see him on April 2nd at the Victoria General Hospital. Right? Because remember, after he got off the ferry, he was so sick. Right? His pneumonia came on immediately while on the ferry, and they had to rush him to emergency. Right? And he wasn't going to be let out anytime soon because all he was doing was sleeping lots and lots and lots and lots. Right? Because they just took him over for a visit. That's what his niece was telling Shimei on the phone as they were running around accusing me of stealing his wallet, even though his wallet was at home. Right? Accusing me of stealing his money. Seems to me they're the ones who stole his money. Stole his money, stole his life, stole his brain, stole his family. Right? Put Shimei into deep depression to the point where she never finished going to school because she was going to go to, she wanted to be a nurse, right? Marcaine never did well in college because he was so depressed. Everybody was depressed. John just lost his brains, lost all his memories by July. By July 14th, people, John had lost all his memory. He stated in a 1-minute conversation that he had been injured and that he was sick for months and that he lost all his memory. And that because he was saying that on the phone, Eleanor's husband took the phone away from him and hung up the phone, people. Right? That was on July 15th. Wait till I read more. You'll see what I'm saying. So in March, he gets a ride all the way up to Mill Bay, which is about a 45-minute, half an hour to an hour drive from the Victoria General Hospital to go to the bank, right? To sign over power of attorney, even though he has no ID, right? Appointing Mrs. Gilding as his power of attorney. Well, which one was it? Which one was it, people? Was he appointed power of attorney in front of healthcare staff that we already know is crooked? On February 20th, the day after he asked me to go get a lawyer, the lawyer who tried to phone John and wasn't allowed to talk to him on more than one occasion. I don't think the lawyer's going to lie about that. Wait. The CIBC power of attorney was signed in the presence of and witnessed by a CIBC branch employee. Well, yeah, because they were telling John that all his money was stolen. He had none, right? And that, his ID was stolen and he had none, and that he needed money, people. They were telling him that he needed money, even though he was in the Victoria General Hospital, admitted through the emergency ward after getting off the ferry, but he needed money. So they took him there to go get money for him. At this time, Mr. Duncan advised CIBC branch staff that the reason he had removed Miss Chorney as his power of attorney was that the money in his accounts was not being used for him, and he did not want any more money to come out of those accounts. Are you listening to this, people? At that time, Mr. Duncan also opened up a new operating account. Well, yeah, because they had to transfer in that life insurance money that he inherited from Joan. The one that Eleanor Gilding, his loving sister, never told him about for 13 months because Joan died in December of 2014. John didn't go into the hospital until January 15th, and they didn't take him until February of 2015. John went into the hospital January of 2015, and they took him in February of 2015. Joan died in December of 2014. So they needed a new account to transfer that life insurance money into that account. As they kept his regular paycheck from the government with his pensions going into his normal account. So he opened up a secondary, well, he didn't open, his sister opened up a secondary account for him at the time of him being injured, being sick for months, and then by July, losing all his memory, people. At that time, Mr. Duncan also opened up a new operating account. Why did he need a new operating account? He already had an account, right? They kept that account active for over a year with his pensions going into that account, people, because I had power of attorney. I still had legal power of attorney. I was never removed from the power of attorney. The bank is lying. But they have all the resources, and they have crooked lawyers. And they have funky case law that they can throw in when you get close and you got their feet to the fire, right? Again, at this time, there was no concern regarding Mr. Duncan's competency. Okay. April 2nd, Marcaine and Shimei went to go see Uncle John at the Victoria General Hospital. So that would have been 6 days after this. And he's telling Eleanor that he wants to see the kids. And she's telling him on freaking camera video that he's not allowed to see them because he's not better yet, people. He's not better yet, so he can't see the kids. And then she calls security on them and has them scared out of there because they were afraid of getting arrested. Well, Uncle John is saying, no, I want to see the kids. Well, if he was competent, why didn't Eleanor let him see the kids? If he was so competent, if he was so well, why didn't Eleanor let him see the kids? Because she stole his money, people. And she ruined his life. And she ruined Shimei's life. And now Shimei is dead. Are you listening, Eleanor? Because this shit's gonna haunt you. And it's gonna haunt CIBC Bank. How come you didn't do this? Why didn't you take care of this one, Eleanor? Canadian Imperial Bank, Commerce? What you gonna do about this one? If John was so fucking competent, why is this still hanging around? If John was so fucking competent, why is this one still hanging around? And then there's Andres still hanging around. The plaintiff complained to CIBC on or about March 31st, 2015, about the fact that the Charney power of attorney had been revoked. No, it wasn't revoked. I got a note in the mail signed by Eleanor with the bank stepping around saying it was in dispute. In terms of, there were two powers of attorney. But when you look and you print it out, there's only my name on there, people. Twice. From 1990 and 2001. So they're misleading the court. Because you can't present the evidence. They don't allow you to present the evidence. That's what Fraser Health Authority freaking did. They brought in their case law to skirt away from the evidence. That's why the judge said, go send it to the cops. But the last time I fucking checked, there's a murderer running around. It's bad enough you got fucking white-collar criminals running around doing this shit. Now you got fucking down and out fucking murderers running around. Getting away with it. With their hot capping. With a drug that is used in hospitals. Isn't that interesting? CIBC escalated, okay, The plaintiff, this is number 9. The plaintiff complained to CIBC Bank, just waiting for it to flash, on or about March 31st, 2015, about the fact that the Chorney power of attorney had been revoked. In response to the plaintiff's complaint, CIBC escalated the issue and undertook a more detailed examination of the circumstances and documents concerning the dispute. Well, why doesn't Canadian Imperial Bank Commerce cough up those documents? I'd like to fucking see them. But of course, John's dead now, so there is no witness, right? Chorney power of attorney, the Gilding power of attorney, and the CIBC power of attorney. Of course, CIBC appointed themselves. That's exactly what they did. A CIBC representative duly advised the plaintiff that the issue had been referred to CIBC Legal's Department and was being investigated. Yeah, I asked him to do that, people. I asked him to do that. But you don't ask the fox to watch the hen house, right? On or about April 27, 2015, a CIBC representative contacted Mr. Duncan by telephone. Remember that date, April 27th, okay? John was not well enough to see the kids, people. Have that on video, okay? My kids took a bus to Victoria General Hospital across the water to go see John, and they weren't even there for 30 minutes before Eleanor flew in like the nasty bat that she is and started threatening to call security within the first 2 minutes of her showing up, telling John again that he wasn't well enough to see them and that he knew that. But yet, they're calling him up, and he's supposed to be all honky-dory, doing really well. On or about April 20th. If he was doing so well, then why didn't Eleanor let him see the kids? Why rush him away like they're a dirty secret? Why open up a new bank account that he never fucking used? I have documentation to show that his pension plans were going in his normal, regular bank account for over a year until finally that shady bank over there, Canadian Imperial Bank Commerce, with their fucked up employees, turned around and started messing with my bank cards to kick out the fucking bank card because that was the only way that they could remove me from power of attorney and having access to his account through the bank card. I have the fucking paperwork on that, people. And they used the same teller 3 times to do it. So if he was doing so fucking well, why wasn't he allowed to see the kids? He only raised them since they were babies. Where was his sister then? In all those fucking years, I'd like to know where his sister was. Being a big fucking wig, giving all these innocent people immunizations and bringing autism people, what is it? 1 in every 30 kids born today get autism? Well, we know why. Honest to God, the truth is coming out on that shit with this immunization programs that these maniacs freaking operate. Because she's a manager to a provincial immunization program, people. Running around inoculating people all over the place. Telling her brother, after all these years, right? As soon as some money comes in, he's not allowed to have a life anymore with the kids that he raised. With the kids that he helped to raise. He held Shimei the minute she was born. He held her for 6 freaking months, people, while I used to sew. He walked all the kids to school. He'd be the first one up in the morning with the kids. But he's not allowed to see the kids because he's not well enough. But In regards to CIBC Bank, I guess he was. On or about April 27th, a CIBC representative contacted Mr. Duncan by telephone and spoke with him to confirm his intentions and instructions. Right. Well, we already know that's bullshit, right? Because the only way they got in there was through the freaking, what is that called? The credit card. Have documentation of that too, people. She phoned on April 23rd, on February 23rd, after they put him in the fucking hammock. And they shipped him across the ferry. And her husband impersonated John. So if he impersonated John once, he impersonated John twice. Mr. Duncan confirmed that he was aware the Chorney power of attorney had been revoked and replaced with the Gilding power of attorney and CIBC power of attorney, and that he was aware of the documentation that had been submitted to CIBC in this regard. Well, yeah, because she was just doing what she was wanting to do while he was sitting in a fucking hospital. And then when he got out of the hospital, he pretty much got injured, was sick for months, and then he completely lost all his memory as he was losing his memory in the hospital. Telling the kids that everything was weird and that he had a fucking nervous breakdown. And that he was going home to some country fucking place that he had never been to because that was the only place he was allowed to go. So he accepted it because he got tired of being gaslighted. And as he's pleading to have the kids stay, his sister is kicking them out. As she's reminding John, saying, you're not well enough. You know that. You're not well enough. You know that, John. But not in CIBC banks. Mine, they thought he was just fucking honky-dory. All they had to do is just phone him up. It's interesting how the bank could phone him, but the lawyer couldn't phone him. You know how many times the lawyer tried to contact John? Oh, probably 5 or 6, 7 times. Never once could he ever talk to John. But the bank phones once. With an empty fucking account. Yeah, empty account my ass. On or about April 28th, 2015, a CIB representative contacted the plaintiff by telephone and advised her that CIBC had contacted Mr. Duncan and confirmed his instructions and intentions, and absent medical evidence challenging Mr. Duncan's medical capacity. Going forward, CIBC would only be able to take instructions and directions concerning Mr. Duncan's account from Mr. Duncan or Mrs. Gilding. They never spoke to Mr. Duncan. Okay, so you know why people don't fight this stuff, right? Because it's too easy for these corporations to lie, people. It's too easy to accuse you of things, even though you've been a customer with them for over 20 years. It doesn't matter. As soon as the big money comes rolling in, they turn into the green-eyed monster. They open up secondary accounts that aren't being used outside of a spillover for a mass amount of money to go in and to hide it, right? Something that John never got to spend, people, because once they moved him to his sister's, I was watching what they were doing with his money in terms of his pension plans, and they'd go off to the workman's warehouse. They would buy something and then, I guess, go take it to him. And then they would, a week later, take it back to the workman's warehouse and fucking get back their money. Well, his money. They would just take it back. So they would come and say, oh, here, John, try this on. Oh, it doesn't fit. Okay. And then they would just take it back and have the money deposit back into his account. They did that on several occasions, people. And then they kept him right up until January of 2016. And that's when they kicked me out with my card with that one teller that basically, like I said, I have the paperwork to prove that they did it on purpose, right? Through one teller. And then that's how they removed me from being able to get bank statements in terms of his transactions, right? Because all of a sudden they were taking out $1,700 and e-transferring it to somewhere else, which told me that after that period of time, they kept them just long enough to get all the paperwork in order with their shady fucking lawyers and everything else, and shady fucking banks and shady fucking healthcare staff and just the whole 9 yards. And then once they didn't need him anymore, they put him in some old folks home until finally, you know, he got sick from just being tortured, and then they just hooked him to up to a bunch of fucking machines at the Royal Jubilee, and then he died. And then they had a private fucking what do you call that, funeral, right? No address, nothing. So, you know, because God forbid if the kids come and see Uncle John, right, and say goodbye, they didn't want that. So they made it so that nobody could show up except by invitation only, because we're a murderous family, right? You know what I mean? Like I said, he only helped to raise these kids, and well, it's disgusting, people. It's completely disgusting. I can't believe this. This is the first time I've actually read it, and now that I'm reading it, and I'll get to the other part here, it's too late to make a response. Because this happened on the day that Shimei legitimately died, as her murderer is walking free. He's like the Grim Reaper. He brings the healthcare system bodies so that they can hook them up to machines and see how long it takes for them to rot on a machine. So why would they want him off the street? They wouldn't. He brings them, he's a cash cow for them. Provincial government just gives them more money for their ICU. The more bodies they have, the more money they need. The more science experiments they do, right, with these dead bodies hooked up to machines, the more money they get. Let's just read 11 again. On or about April 28, 2015, a CIBC representative contacted the plaintiff by telephone. Interesting, though, May, June, July. I called John July 14th or whatever it was. He said he had been sick for 3 months. That's what he said specifically. He had been sick for 3 months. He was injured, and he had lost all his memory. So within a 2.5 month period, they called. 2.5 months. He said 3 months. So what happened to the other 2 weeks? Oh, I know. He was asking Eleanor to see the kids, as she was telling him that he wasn't well enough yet, that he couldn't see the kids, and that he knew that. Contacted the plaintiff by telephone and advised her that CIBC had contacted Mr. Duncan and confirmed his instructions. Again, probably spoke to Eleanor's husband, because the person on the other end wouldn't know what John sounded like, and being that John was so sick and had been injured, for all we know, he was probably sleeping. And confirmed his instructions and intentions, and absent medical evidence challenging Mr. Duncan's medical capacity. Going forward, CIBC would only be able to take instructions and directions concerning Mr. Duncan's account from Mr. Duncan and Mrs. Gilding. Again, at this time, there was no concerns regarding Mr. Duncan's competency. Well, yeah, because they didn't talk to John. They talked to her husband, people. At all material times, Mr. Duncan and the plaintiff had a joint account held in trust for Andre Tyson, the Andre account. That was when I borrowed money on my life insurance policy, people. I think it was something like $3,800 or $3,500 or something like that on my life insurance policy. And then we opened up an account, and then I used that money to take it to the Supreme Court to go get Andre back out of foster care, right? As my children were being treated like trash. To CIBC knowledge, Andre Chorney is the plaintiff's grandson. At all material times, the Andre account had approximately $34. Well, yeah, because I was buying paper, ink, wipeout boards, gas, whatever it was, fucking groceries. We had no money in the house because we had bills because, Joan lived here at one point and I took on the debt load and, I had to bring down the debt load, people, right? In light of the foregoing dispute on or about it was my life insurance policy. In light of the foregoing dispute on or about May 4th, 2015, CIBC placed a requirement on the Andre account that all transactions require both the plaintiff and Mr. Duncan's joint signature. Well, there's about $90 in Andre's account now. So back in 2015, there was $34. Now there's about $90, which is just sitting there. You can't use it. You can't take it out. It requires John's signature. John didn't care about that, I guess. He was more concerned about opening up an account that he never used, people. I got water boiling. Number 13, on or about May 5th. Oh, that's when he would have been severely sick. Okay? 2015, a CIBC representative wrote to Mrs. Chorney stating, "Dear Mrs. Chorney, the CIBC Client Care Center has recently been informed of your concerns," because I phoned them in April asking them to go find out what the hell happened to John. "As this matter falls within my area of responsibility, your file has been assigned to me for review. As per our conversation on April 28, 2015, I informed you that the new power of attorney documents had been provided to CIBC for Mr. John Duncan. The new documents revoked the old power of attorney on Mr. Duncan's accounts. Going forward, CIBC will not be able to provide you with any information on Mr. Duncan's account unless they are joint with you. I was also able to confirm the account you questioned, account blah, 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 is currently joint between you and Mr. Duncan." This is Andre's account. "There is a message on the account that in the trust for Andre Tyson, CIBC has placed a multiple signature required message on this account, which means any transactions requested on this account must have both account holders' signatures on it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this matter for you. I regret any inconvenience this may cause you. For your reference information, blah, blah, blah. Complaint escalates, product can be forwarded." Okay. Sincerely. On September 18, 2015. September. This is 2 months before 3 months or whatever, before they put him in an old folks home and forgot about him. On September, and with all his memory gone, remember? By July, all his memory was gone. On September 18, 2015, a yet further CIBC form titled General Power of Attorney appointing Mrs. Gilding as Mr. Duncan's power of attorney was executed at a CIBC branch in the presence of a CIBC employee, the second CIBC power of attorney. Why? Why would she need to do it again, people? She already did it on February 20th of 2015. Why would she need to do it on September 18th, 2015? Why? And their dates in this don't even match up. 15. At all material times, CIBC complied with all requirements and industry best practices to ensure that it was complying with Mr. Duncan's intentions and instructions, and properly revoked the Chorney power of attorney in favor of the Gilding power of attorney, CIBC power of attorney, and second CIBC power of attorney. Well, that's a whole lot of power of attorneys to get rid of one power of attorney that all started off with a bunch of fucking ranky-ass immigrant social workers that were imported into Canada to screw up families. The one from Britain and the one from freaking Germany or someplace like that. The one that couldn't even freaking speak English correctly. Well, the one from Britain kept threatening to take out John and take him back into his room and punish him like a child because he sat up there and said, "What did I do wrong? Why can't I go home?" I did nothing wrong. I want to go home. And his social worker, well, you didn't do anything wrong. You just need to get stronger. So you're going to go into convalescent care, or you can go to your sister's house, but you can never go back home. Never, John. You can never go back to those kids because too much is at stake. We need to open up another account that you're not even fucking aware of. But we'll just keep it empty because we'll make it look like you didn't get anything, and we'll make it so that your pension plans continue to go through your regular account. Because his sister didn't have power of attorney back in those days, so she couldn't fucking transfer over all his shit. Not that she needed to anyway. Because she went to the bank and said, look, I got $200,000 here. I don't know what to do with it. I need a second account. Here, quick, open up a, what do you call those? Offshore freaking bank accounts to launder money, people. 16. Other than the foregoing, and I'm serious, I'm going to be writing the fucking CEO of Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. My water's boiling. Hold on a minute. Remember, this was given to me on the day that she may die. April 11th, 2018. Seems kind of staged, don't you think? Because obviously my family is being preyed upon. Like I said, we have murderers walking around free out on the streets because they provide bodies to a corrupt healthcare system to get money. And we have kidnappers and thieves that steal bodies to provide money for a healthcare system. Right? As both bodies have their minds destroyed. (16) Other than the foregoing and in specific reference to the orders sought in paragraph 5 and 6 of part 2 of the claim, no other investigation has been done by CIBC concerning the plaintiff and her family. Additional facts. CIBC does not rely on any additional facts at this time, but reserves the right to amend this amended response to civil claim to plead material facts should the claim be amended and reasonable cause of action against CIBC be articulated. I gave them a 20-page condensed outline of what I initially gave to them, citing the Criminal Code of Canada on multiple occasions. And of course, I'm not a lawyer, so, you know, it's easy for them to falsify their internal files and investigate themselves and, you know, go with the big money versus $34 in a trust account. Part 2, response to relief sought. No relief known or otherwise permissible by law is sought in Part 2 of the claim. To the extent the claim seeks relief against the defendant elsewhere in the claim, the defendant does not consent to the granting of any relief. Well, of course not, because it's a chokehold, people. That's what it is. You can be a customer to a bank for 20 years, and when they want to kick you in the fucking teeth and smash your head apart on the ground after they're done kicking your teeth in, they can do that because they're the bank and they can do whatever the fuck they want. And then they go after the kids, the next generation. The defendant does not consent to the granting of any relief, whether sought in Part 2 or in any other part of the claim. Because they've got Andre's little trust account on a lockdown. And they made sure that Shemai's trust account that she could never access was on lockdown. And they made sure that they're in the process of bankrupting me monthly, with me being stuck with all the bills, even though John is responsible for those bills because at the end of the day, he came in with bankruptcy and I'm the one that had to take on the bills. Even though he lived with me all those years and was a part of the house and made those decisions with me. Right? Because he needed help. Because his sister wasn't there for him. Nobody was there for him. His adopted daughter wasn't there for him. His wife wasn't there for him. His brother wasn't there for him. His mother wasn't there for him. And his sisters weren't there for him. That's why he was with us, people. That's why Joan moved in with us, people. Because those people weren't there for John or Joan. But Joan was a spiteful woman. Joan was jealous. So, she made sure she stuck it to me in her will by allowing Eleanor to destroy her husband's life so that after he was dead, more than likely his body was buried next to her. But the thing is, John and I, we had a backup plan. When he died and when I died, if he wanted to come back home, he was more than welcome to come back home in this afterlife. But I was never going to live with Joan again. And now that Shimei is dead, trust me, him and Shimei are together, but Joan is not there. Joan is living in her own place. Because I don't think that Shimei would want to live with Joan either. Because then she'd be in a position like Debbie. She'd be forced to pick on John because that's what Joan and Debbie did. They picked on Uncle John. That's why John left. He got tired of being their bitch. Neither one of them liked to clean anything. Whatever. Part 3, legal basis. The claim as filed does not comply with Rule 3.1 and 3.7 of the Supreme Court Civil Rules, as it does not set out a concise statement of the material facts giving rise to the claim. B, it doesn't say anything. C, set out a concise summary of all the legal bases for the relief sought. Whatever. At least I got their attention. I still have a reason to write the CEO in Ottawa or Toronto or wherever the hell they are. D, nothing. E, show in what representative capacity the plaintiff sues to the extent that it is the plaintiff's intention. Provide the data collection information required in the appendix to the form or otherwise comply to Rule 3.7. 2. No visible cause of action has been articulated and no viable cause of action exists by the plaintiff against CIBC Bank. Well, of course not, because there's only $34 in Andre's account. Well, sorry, there's 90 in there now. And it's just sitting there, waiting for John to sign it. We're just waiting for John to come about and just sign it. The plaintiff has brought this action in her own name, yet appears to raise, among other things, allegations in relation to the obligation and duties owed by CIBC to Mr. Duncan. Damn rights they failed Mr. Duncan. They destroyed his life, people. And they did a really shoddy investigation. Right? They had no intentions to do an investigation. When that lawyer asked me what I wanted, I said I want an investigation. He was just being an ass. Just an asshole, right? Yeah, this is what you call an investigation. The plaintiff does not have standing or authority to demand access to documents. Well, I do, though. I do, people. But I'm one person against a multi-billion-dollar corporation with a corrupt court system that protects another multi-billion-dollar corporation in terms of the healthcare system, which is all pretty much union-oriented. right? Birds of a feather flock together. And information about Mr. Duncan, as she has no legal authority over his accounts or his affairs. They haven't provided any proof. All they've done is spit out rhetoric with dates that don't match up. She either became power of attorney on February 20th, one day after John asked me to go get a lawyer, or she became power of attorney in March, or was it in September? Which one was it? Like, because there's 3 times they said that she signed herself on. All right. And all I ever got to revoke me was just something in handwritten, right? From her with a 1 signature note. Just a 1 little signature note. Well, the bank had to kick out my card just so that I couldn't access his original account to show how he was now being moved into an old folks home and $1,700 was being taken out and forwarded there, right? As she was going to Workman Warehouse, buying things, taking him that stuff, and then taking it back a week later and getting back the money. Right? But it wouldn't matter anyway because she still had that secondary account. I didn't know that until I read this tonight, people. But you heard it. Why would he need a secondary account when he had $3,000 going into his original account from his pension plans? Why not just use that one? Why did she need a second one? The claim is frivolous, fictitious, and an abusive process and should be struck pursuant to Rule 9.5 on the grounds that it discloses no reasonable claim. It is unnecessary, scandalous, frivolous, and vexatious. Well, again, Shemay is dead. Thank you very much, CIBC Bank, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Maybe if your bank would have been honorable and did the right fucking thing and protected your customers from snakes and grass that crawl out of fucking holes 35, 40, 50 years later and call some family card just so that they can steal their brother's money. Maybe my daughter would have completed being a nurse in 2016 and would have dumped this fucking murderer a long fucking time ago and would be alive today. Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. But no, you had to put everybody into fucking lockdown, everybody depressed, right? Because Uncle John wasn't allowed to talk to the kids no more because he wasn't well. Remember that, CIBC Bank, Canadian Imperial Bank, Commerce? Uncle John wasn't allowed to talk to the kids no more because he wasn't well. So for everything you got to fucking say here, you've got my daughter's blood on your hands. It's right there. There's the blood right there, people, on Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce hands. Well, I'm sorry, computer system. It's like a virus. It's going to eat your fucking computer system up. Anyway, this is the last page. Dated. Do you see it? I had 35 days, I guess, to respond to this, people. Which means I've got like 3 more days left, or 2. Today's the 14th. It's like going on now, it's the 14th. It's like 1 in the morning. Rule 711 of the Supreme Court rules states, unless all parties of record consent or the court otherwise orders, each party of the record to an action must, within 35 days after the end of the pleading period, prepare a list of documents in Form 22 that lists. He already got some of that. I already printed out Form 22. We didn't get everything done because, we're discouraged, right? But I gave him a list of some things, so he's already got this, what he's asking for. He asked me why I had Joan's shit in there listed down on this Form 22. And I just wanted to show him. I have all her ID. I have her passports. I have all of it. Just like I have John's shit. Because when Joan died, the only thing that family took was the body, people. That was it. They just took Joan's body and left everything else behind for me and John to deal with. Right? And then same thing happened with Uncle John. They just took the body. Right? Because these are healthcare professionals. That's all they care about are bodies. Dead bodies and bodies that they can destroy. Seriously. Right? Because when they took John's body, they destroyed his mind. Right? And then he didn't live much longer after that. Once they got the money and they got all the paperwork fucking organized, within a year, he was shipped off to some old folks home, and just died of fucking misery. And then Shimei, she dies, and what do? They put her on a fucking machine only because the Narcan brought back her heart, even though all the tests clearly showed she was dead. But they kept her on the machine anyway because it's all about the body. Knowing that the brain was dead. Right? Had a super bug on her skin. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Let everybody think she's alive. Let everybody think there's some hope in there so they can get their $1 million from the fucking provincial government to go get more fucking ICU beds. So they can have the murderer running around handing them more bodies. Tell me how it's not true. I'd like to know. Tell me how it's not fucking true. I got better things in my life to do than to be talking about this crap. But tell me how it's not fucking true. Bodies aren't sitting up 1 minute and then laying down the next all by themselves. All documents or asking for a lawyer one day and disappearing the next day. And then when the lawyer tries to call, can never contact the client because the client isn't being told that the lawyer is calling. Isn't that interesting? As the client is supposedly on the phone telling the bank that the client knows what he's talking about. But yet, the client can't deal with this shit. As he's opening up a ghost account. Like, this is some evil shit. All documents that are or have been in the party's possession or control and that could, if available, be used by any party at trial to prove or disprove a material fact, and all documents to which the party intends to refer at trial and serve a list on all parties of record. Well, let me tell you something, people. I haven't even gone to the courthouse and printed out the orders from the last judge I was in front of that told me to take this to the cops. Okay? I just haven't made it downtown yet. I've been wanting to go, but, something bad has happened to my daughter and I haven't been able to go yet. Right? Never mind. Read this. That was the first time I read that, people. I'm just wondering who's next. I know in my dream, I seen Shimei's face. It was covered like this. Just like when she was in the hospital. They had a sheet over her like that. And all I seen was her face. And she looked dead. I told you that dream, people. And then whatever happened to Shimei was going to start going towards Tisha. And it was going to happen to Tisha. I thought maybe Shimei just wouldn't talk to me anymore. And then maybe I got into a fight with Tisha and Tisha wouldn't talk to me anymore. But you know what? My daughter was murdered, people. and he's walking free. Okay? And the healthcare system is propping this shit up, just like the fucking bank is propping up the shit that happened with Uncle John, just like the healthcare system propped up what happened to Uncle John. So who's the next victim in terms of my family? Who's the next target? Who's the next hit on the hit list? Because Uncle John was on a hit list. Shimei was on a hit list, okay? Because if they weren't on a hit list, these people that get paid to do the right thing, okay, they would be doing the right thing, and they're not doing the right thing, people, okay? The healthcare system likes dead bodies with dead brains. Or they like bodies, and then they make the brains dead, right? In terms of Uncle John's case, so that they can open up fucking ghost accounts and play freaking mind games with bank cards so that they don't have to be held accountable for the shit that they do when it comes to stealing other people's money, right? We already know that the Surrey Memorial Hospital is getting good money to be hooking up bodies to machines for 9 days so they can get to the point where they're almost ready to fucking explode. And then get mad at the family because the family now doesn't really necessarily want to shut up the machine because they don't understand what the fuck is going on, because the healthcare staff isn't being honest about you, to you. They're not being honest to you. They're not telling you why her tongue is protruding. They're not telling you why her eyes are leaking out of her fucking sockets. They're not telling you why this liquid is coming out of her fucking arms and her skin and everywhere else on her body, because they're lying to you people. Like, what is wrong with people today? That's 2 family members in my family, and that's not including Sierra, who gets Narcan sent to the hospital, and God knows what they fucking do with her, because whatever they do with her, they're not helping her, people. She's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and she's going to be the next one that I'm going to say, oh, well, guess what? Sierra's gone now. But yeah, who's going to be next? Tisha? Is my dream going to come fucking true? Because they don't want to do something with the fucking murder that's running around anymore than they want to do something with fucking Eleanor fucking Gilding?